Okay.
Don't back up. Back up.
Oh. Here we go. This enough for you?
Yeah, I think that's good. All right. Hi. Hey, Mickey. First one. So, different time today. I was going to do it before yoga, but but I was able to bump into a friend. It's been a while. I've known him forever, but since I've been here. And he's really inspiring in so many ways. And so, good, I'll bring him on to talk. One of the smartest people I know. It's kind of interesting. People always ask him what's the next celebrity I'm going to interview. And I'm inspired by these people who took their celebrity and gave back and did good and lifted people up and took their businesses and employed a lot of people and all that. But I'm also inspired by the really brilliant people who are deep studied and who are to themselves but give so much, person by person, by transmission, one by one. They're not seeking limelight, they're not famous, but they have the jewels, like the smart ones. Not that the celebrities aren't. Some celebrities are celebrities because they're smart. And some are, but what I'm talking about today is this really brilliant guy, normal guy from Brooklyn. You would not think he's normal. When you hear his story, you don't know what the fuck he's going to say, but his story about leaving Brooklyn and studying all of these he studies a lot of shit. That's why we like him. But today I want to focus primarily, I'm going to ask him if he would focus a lot on plant medicine. Because plant medicine is, a lot of friends take psychedelics to lift their consciousness or relationship with the world in different ways, to heal also. Big on healing. People take plant medicine to heal a lot. And so this person is a shaman. Right? A nigger shaman, well, I didn't tell you, he's an African American from Brooklyn. And he's a shaman. He went to Peru to study. And he can talk to you a little bit about this, because this is something that most African Americans and most Americans don't know anything about. You read about, though, Bill Gates took this microdose LSD, and this person did this, and Mike Tyson did this, and all of these celebrities are taking all this plant medicine, and it's used for healing, but also courage comes out of it. I don't know, a lot of things come out of it. Everyone is different, but the deep study of self, I often say, is the only thing that we have purpose, is because the more we know the self, the more we know God, a yogi would say, or the more we know the self, the more happy we are. Happiness comes from the inside out, and that's self-realization, they call it. So every effort we make, everything we do is towards self-discovery. And plant medicine is a tool for self-discovery. So Melvin can come on, and he can talk to you about all kind of shit, but I'm going to try to keep him focused on plant medicine. And then I'll have him on again and again, because he's got so much to teach. Let's see if we can get, could you press that?
Sure.
And let's see if he's available. Maybe I have to call him. Yeah. There he is, Melvin. Yeah.
Instagram. Evolve with Melvin. I just noticed that. There he is.
Haha.
There he is.
Hey, what's up, brother? All right,
So
all
I'm
right.
talking a little bit about you.
I heard.
Yeah. And I was saying that you were bright, and I didn't talk to you about this and clear it. But it's subject that a lot of the audience doesn't know about, and I think it'll be exciting to them. And I think that when we start to launch the podcast, right, something like as a core, as an anchor to our discussion, we'll get more people listening. And I want more people to know about you and the work that you do. And, I know that you provide it for a lot of people here in Bali. But some of it's online, right?
Yeah. I work primarily online.
Right. That's a lot of healers are here and work online. A lot of people who have a lot of the jewels come here because they continue to study themselves and because they're with a bunch of like-minded people. But you give it to the world through online. So tell me, first, tell me what you do, and so that people will understand, background.
Right. So what I do I work with plant medicine, various psychedelics, or I don't really like the term psychedelics because it's a loaded term, and there's still that carryover from like the 60s and the 70s of people jumping out of windows and, going crazy.
I still don't
So
allege. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I use the term entheogen because entheogen is something that is an entheogenic compound is something that brings us closer to the source. And when I say the source, I don't necessarily mean something outside of us. I mean our heart, the anahata, that connective point between our mind and our heart, our
For those who
spirit and
don't know,
our
the
being.
anahata is the heart chakra, the fourth chakra. Go ahead.
Right. So I help people who are facing not only like trauma, PTSD, relationship issues, mental health issues, or people who are just curious about the nature of consciousness in and of itself and who they really are. So at times I serve people plant medicine and help facilitate that journey to bring them more into themselves and to gain a deeper understanding of themselves. I bring them to the point of being aware that we could actually make the choice of who shows up at any given time, who we really are, and to their own personal free will and sovereignty of the mind and of the emotions and of the heart. Far too often people are subjected to and pushed around by the general consensus, the collective consciousness, cultural limitations, those kinds of things, which in turn frame our way of thinking, our way of feeling, and our way of interacting with the world. And what I do is help bring them to that point to show them that these are the things that have affected you. This is who you have become. And now it's up to you to become who you want to become and make that conscious choice. So
That is
that's
a
pretty
mouthful,
much what I
Melvin.
do. Yeah.
That's I like to say, and I'm gonna try to listen more than talk. I'm gonna watch my podcast as I'm rehearsing. Like I've been talking too fucking much. But I like to say that the only journey one has is inside, and that the only thing we do every day is try to move more and more towards the self. So everything we do, all the cars we buy, the sex we have, the drugs we take, is so that we could be more, get a comfortable seat. So when we know the self,
Yeah.
then we know this freedom and happiness in all situations. So I say that's what we do. We buy a car, we have sex, we take drugs, every single effort we make is towards a little bit more stillness, a little bit, because the result is like the extinguishing of neediness. So that's, and I said, so I don't want to talk anymore, but that's the only purpose on life is that the mind is constantly trying to relieve itself of suffering, right? So,
100%.
but they don't know how to do it. They need Melvin. So go ahead, Melvin. Tell me more about, first tell me how we can find you online. Evolve with Melvin is your Instagram.
Instagram,
Evolve with
right.
Melvin. Okay.
And my website is theevolutionist.com. And
The
there you can find a little bit
Evolutionist?
more. Yeah, theevolutionist.com.
D or the?
The.
See, nigga, you from Brooklyn.
The.
But you said,
THE.
okay, say it again. The Evolutionist is his
Right.
website.
Right.
Theevolutionist.com. And
Right.
Evolve with Melvin is his Instagram. And I think it's very important because I'm going to promote this later. I mean, right now we're testing, but we're going to chop it all up. And maybe you have footage and maybe you have information that we want to share with people. But see, I've done Snoop. While I've been rehearsing, I've done Snoop. I've done Eric Sermon. I've done Chuck D. I've done Jermaine Dupri. I've done Maya. I've done some people I haven't released the footage from. So we have all of these people with celebrities now as I'm starting to move into being more comfortable with this. But what I really want to do is teach. And I think, Snoop will give you a jewel on how to escape the hood. He did that. Amazing. And I think that Kevin Lau will give you inspiration. We did Kevin Lau on how to keep your head down. And because they're celebrities, people take their words more, even my words, I can talk about consciousness in a way, and somehow they'll buy into it in a way that they might not, if it was given to them by a master. And you're a master. And I want to say that, on what you're a shaman. Tell me about how you became a shaman. Because Brooklyn niggas don't really become shamans.
Right. And the majority of people from Brooklyn or from New York generally live and die in New York. That's their thing. That's like the center of their world. That's So years ago, I gained, I was raised Hindu. So I'm half Indian. My mother's Hindu. So I grew up around a lot of spirituality, spiritual teachings, the ceremonies, all of those things. And since a child, I've always been curious about spirituality, the nature of consciousness,
You have to come back to
who
the
I
ceremonies.
am.
They don't know what the fuck you're talking. When you talk about the ceremonies,
Yeah.
you'll come back to it because that's going to be
Yes.
the basis of our conversation is about what these
Yeah.
ceremonies do, how they work, and go ahead.
Right. Right. So I decided to go to Peru. I was introduced to ayahuasca from one of my best friends, Marcos, and he mentioned it to me. And we just started vibing and speaking about working with
I love
entheogens.
that. Look,
And
I live in Bali, right? And you live in
mm,
Bali. And everybody here, especially in the city of Ubud where we live, are seeking self-study and realization. Mike
right,
Tyson knows, and a lot of celebrities now are learning, and it's kind of an elite subject, even though it's been around for
right,
1,000 years. They know what the fuck
right.
ayahuasca is. Let's back up,
So,
and I'm going to let you
okay.
tell it later, but tell us what ayahuasca is.
So ayahuasca is a plant. It's two plants mixed together from the Amazon region. I lived in Peru, but they also use it in Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, and they call it different names. But essentially, ayahuasca, the cleanest form of ayahuasca, are two compounds mixed together. So you have the vine of ayahuasca itself, and it's a vine that grows around trees. Its phylum is Banisterius caapi. That's like the scientific name for it. And then it's mixed with another plant that doesn't even grow by it. And it's mixed with these leaves called chacruna. And chacruna, its genus name, I want to say, is Psychovidrius. Psychovidrius something else, that's irrelevant. But they mix these two compounds together and they macerate it, cook it for days, boil it down, add water, cook it down, and then it turns into a brown liquid. It looks similar to cacao, and it has a very deep, dark, earthy
Cacao,
taste
for
to
those
it.
who don't know, is a chocolate. It's like
Right.
a core chocolate. When people eat milk chocolate in America, I don't know what the fuck wrong with them. But chocolate
Yeah.
is a beautiful thing. If cacao is, they have cacao ceremonies and all these things here. But we'll talk
Mm.
about cacao at another time. But a lot of these
Yeah.
things, see, I want to share, Melvin, let me just give you, since we're having a conversation. I want
Of
to
course.
share all of the tools to get people out of suffering, right? As they come to me, and I've been practicing and studying yoga, and I've been practicing and studying a vegan diet for over 20 years for each of those two things. And I've been watching these naturopathic doctors and these Ayurvedic doctors and these shamans, and I'm watching the healing, and I'm watching the health, not only of them, but of their clients.
Right.
And it's just like America, like, right, they asked, I'll tell you quickly, they asked the vice president, why are Americans dying at a much greater rate than other first world people of COVID? It's because you poisoned them, you fucker. He didn't give an answer. It's because they allowed so much toxins, and the medical practitioners don't know anything about health. They just know about poison to kill people. So
Right.
there's all these alternative and healthier ways to protect the body and grow the body into a healthier organism rather than poison it through the food that the American diet. So I just cacao is a chocolate. I just went on a tangent. It's a chocolate. That's what it is.
Right.
But go ahead. It looks like cacao.
Right. Yeah, it's very similar to cacao. And in that, you drink it, and as you drink it, you feel it almost going through your body. And the two compounds, the chacruna, the leaf, contains DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, which is a chemical that's produced by your pineal gland in small doses. The biggest amounts of DMT are produced when we're born and when we die. But throughout the day, tiny doses of DMT are released into our system. Chacruna is packed with DMT. Now, the ayahuasca vine itself is an MAOI, which is called a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and that neutralizes our stomach acid so we could absorb the DMT into our system. And from there, we go into an internal journey. And it's very it's a holistic journey. It's not just something physical or mental or emotional or spiritual. It's all of those things at one time. So you may experience some discomfort, some purging, some tears, some shakes, those kinds of things. But ultimately, what those compounds do is it suspends our median prefrontal cortex. And that part of our brain is our sense of self, of I am Melvin, you are Russell, we're separate beings. And that's the ego. It kind of suspends the ego. It doesn't kill it, but it suspends the ego enough for us to gain an objective view on whatever it is that we've experienced in the past, or whatever it is we are experiencing in the present. And in that objective space, it allows us to look at ourselves and to look at the people surrounding us and to look at our interaction with the world and who we have become as a result of being, let's say, subjected to certain things, subjected to the external poisons that you speak about, subjected to, the cultural nuance of wherever we're at, right? Like being a black man in America, as opposed to being a black man in Asia. It's a two total different experiences. And taking in that compound gives us the ability to not necessarily re-experience everything that's happened to us, but to view it almost like a movie. And from there, we're able to hopefully.
Let me interject now. I'm going to say this because I think, what I'm talking to a lot of people who are not so, they haven't read or studied these things, and they understand them all intuitively, everything you say. But I may want to, the self-study thing, like able to watch it like a movie. So if you were to read Yogananda's book or about his personal book, which is written in 70 languages all over the world, right? He talked a lot about his experiences when he stepped into presence. And there's all this talk about samadhi or Christ consciousness or nirvana or the state of yoga or taqwa for Muslims. This talk of oneness, this creative space, just a live space where the body and the mind are toys and the watcha becomes this consciousness. So they have, and that's alive. The consciousness is alive, and the mind and the body are tools. So there's all this talk in yogic science and philosophy about being the watcha. And so if you could, and in seconds you are, when you're playing basketball and the ball's in slow motion, and when you drive in a car accident and the world stops and you separate yourself from everything and you watch slowly. Everything we do is for more seconds where there's no noise, where we can see, the world. So this idea of being present and awake, he said, this ayahuasca will put you in a state of being the watcher. So that's a key phrase for everybody. What we want to be in life is the watcher. Then we're blissful. We don't struggle. We don't worry. We don't suffer. We're fully present. Go ahead.
Right.
I'm sorry. The only reason I interject, Melvin, because you are, you're so brilliant. What you're saying is so important, but it goes over people's heads because, they don't know. If I had to explain cacao, there's some things that, because they know a lot of shit we don't know. We've been blocking out a lot of shit.
Right. So I saw that somebody commented, they were like, yeah, but racism still exists, right? And that's a perfect segue into really explaining the depth of what plant medicine does for you. See, when you take plant medicine, nothing in the outside world changes at all. Racism still exists, classism still exists, discrimination, fucked up relationships, whatever it is, all of that exists still. It doesn't magically undo it. It's not a silver bullet for wiping the slate clean of the world. But what it does, it allows you to see how it affected you and how you will respond to it next time you are faced with it. And I hope that kind of clarifies it, that the onus is ultimately on you to make the conscious choice. Plant medicine helps put you into a space the very same way how we say that when we're on a yoga mat, how you move on your yoga mat is how you live your life, right? It's the same thing with plant medicine. It brings you ultimately to that space of presence, to see okay, well, I recognize that, whatever, this person's being a certain way to me. Perhaps it's because of my skin, perhaps it's my nose ring, dreads, tattoos, whatever. Okay, that's their own bias. I do not have to respond to that bias. I don't have to engage with that bias. I can still hold myself in a place of honor and poise and grace in order to, achieve whatever it is that I'm trying to achieve, or whatever the proposed outcome is. So that's the gist of plant medicine. That's what I find when people speak about.
And going
Please.
back to the point is that we only here to experience self-realization. That life's
Exactly.
only goal is self-study. So plant medicine helps you study yourself and see things without bias. See your reaction to the world without bias. So this is why so many, and I mentioned a few, but there are so many people who are revered, and I keep going back to them because they keep revered by the public, who think that these hallucinogenic experiences changed their life for the better, and it's why they were such good givers and became so successful, and became so brilliant in their space, or were able to think outside of the box, right? Because and they were able to see themselves as the vehicles that they were, and do work in a much greater capacity because of that.
100%. 100%. It allows people to review. It allows them to review whatever it is that they face, whatever it is that they're doing, whoever it is that they were, and brings them to the space to actually make the choice as to who they are going to become and what they're going to do and how they are going to respond.
We're talking about ayahuasca and plant medicine with shamans. Melvin, he's more than a shaman, but we're talking about just this part today. He went to Peru. He studied deeply plant medicine and went through a lot of what they call ceremonies when you take the plant medicine. And now he administers plant medicine to some of his patients, his clients. I even call them patients, clients. His job is, again, and you can go back. We're going to put this up soon. I'm not sure when. We're going to edit it properly and use it. But his job, tell us again about your website. He's evolved through Melvin on Instagram. And his website is called?
Evolutionist.com.
Evolutionist.com. And what he does is he helps heal trauma and bring people into a place of grace and happiness from out of suffering. So he's one of the ways out of suffering, non-traditional ways. It's not a pill. There's no pills for Melvin, but there is a lot of self-study and moving us to a place where we can holistically come out of the suffering. Go ahead.
100%. What else is of interest in this world but studying ourselves and our interaction with it? The nature of our reality and our perception of reality. That book by Malcolm Gladwell, he says that, it takes 10,000 hours for you to become an expert in something. Whether you study law for 10,000 hours, you're an expert lawyer, or medicine, or whatever it is, 10,000 hours, right? You know a lot of people. How many people do you know who have taken at least 10,000 hours to study themselves and to become an expert in who they are? See, more often than not, we're so, enamored with the external experience, right? That we don't really take the time to learn the internal experience. We don't really see what's going on inside. We just keep going, push, trying to attain these external gratifications in order to make the internal environment at peace. And those are nothing more than coping mechanisms. Everything, the habits, the addictions, everything is a coping mecanism to deal with this constant... Right,
even
exactly.
The family, the marriage, all the things you try to make work, you try to make it work because you want this peace, this presence, this awareness. This is an internal function, not an external. So you extinguish the neediness by getting a new car, by getting a new girl, and then you feel for a second freedom from the suffering of neediness. Right. So when you know the self, there's no neediness. And what Melvin teaches is people to come to self. So Melvin, we got to go back to the subject that, and I want to ask you a few questions about it. Because that's what I'm gonna label this. You're a shaman, among other things, but you're a shaman and a teacher. I'll just say shaman and teacher. We'll agree on that, because that's what you are. You're a shaman and a teacher, and what people will be interested in is plant medicine, right? Because they hear about it and they need to study it and they want to try it, and it's used professionally to really bring people into places of happiness and places, not only happiness, of self-realization, which is the most happy space you can live in when you truly know the self. We're all working on it more and more, but so Melvin at Evolve Through Melvin and the Evolutionist teaches people, clients online, about ways out of suffering. Plant medicine. You have ayahuasca, we discussed. And ayahuasca does all these things for a lot of people. A lot of people I know here, the hippies, a lot of people taking ayahuasca. There's such thing as abusing it too. I mean, but what do you
100%.
Get? Right. And then there's Bofu. I was mad at, I was hiding in my brain. I didn't want to say I was mad. There's another celebrity, right? I was really holding a grudge. I don't hate anybody on the surface. I tell myself, I just don't have any anger towards anybody. But I tell myself that. But there was something inside internally I was really upset about, and I was holding on to it. And then I went into it. I wanted compassion. And I wanted not to be angry at anyone, whether they be celebrities or any individuals on this planet. And I knew that I wasn't on the surface to anyone. But I smoked what's it called? The shaman came. I'll tell you my experience. You tell me how. The shaman came. They brought the Bufo, of course.
Right.
Bufo, and they brought a yogic, a priest, and the priest was singing Asatoma, Sakamaya, Tamasoma, Joytigamaya, a yogic prayer. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then she was singing and playing, and then she said, inhale this. I held it. Then she said, count to 10. Because I inhaled for 10. She said, count to 10. I counted to 5. She touched my foot and went out.
Yeah.
And I literally came out of it 20 minutes later. I didn't know if it was 2 hours or 10 hours or 20 minutes. When I came out of it, so shifted. And I found out that I was harboring this anger. And I was happy that I found it. And I was happy that I could begin to purge it. Because a lot of it, I didn't fully purge. I was like, oh. And then I felt relieved. And I was like, that's fucking amazing. And then I was downloading more shit in my sleep. And so I learned a lot about myself in this Bufo trip. Bufo?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about Bufo. You told us about ayahuasca. Is Bufo one of the ones that you might use?
I don't serve Bufo. However, Bufo comes from a frog. The frogs, the species of frog is a Bufo alvaris frog, and it's a secretion that the frog creates. And I believe it to be perhaps a defense mechanism or something. I don't know, but it's dried and then smoked. And Bufo is DMT, but it's a different kind of DMT. It's called 5-MeO DMT. So, and smoking anything goes straight to your system as opposed to drinking something or injecting something where it's kind of filtered through your stomach, through your GI tract, through your liver, all of those things. But Bufo, yeah, that's the thing that Mike Tyson talks about. But Bufo brings you right up. It brings you right up. And I'm sure like you smoked it, then you exhaled and you start to see the fractal patterns, the kaleidoscope, and then it just brought you right into the seat of your being. And
it was phenomenal. And it helped me to gain some compassion, more compassion, in a place,
right.
You go into it with intention. There's a prayer you make in advance. There's this whole ceremony. So the prayer was for me to be more compassionate and understanding in ways that I hadn't been, and to relieve myself of what anger. So I went into it with a certain intention, and it literally, helped me to understand and be more compassionate. Because it's really, what is it but to understand other people's perspectives versus, being stuck in your own. And but you see it as because your ego drops a little bit, right? And you become free of, protecting you.
Right.
You see others. So that was a great experience. And it's called, that's illegal in America or legal?
Illegal.
It's illegal. They know about it. So how long has that been around? How long has ayahuasca been around?
Thousands of years. Nobody knows the real story of how I've like worked with various shamans in the mountains, in the jungles, and nobody really gives you like a concrete answer as to how did they figure this out? How did they know to mix this vine with this leaf and this is what'll happen? Some said that spirit told them, some said that the jaguar showed them. I don't really know, but I know that this has been practiced for thousands of years. I mean, but when you look at the history of entheogenic use throughout the world, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, the term shaman in and of itself comes from Siberia, right? And they were working with the species fly agaric, the white mushroom with the red top mushroom with the little white dots, like the Super Mario Brothers mushrooms. You had those people in Siberia. In India, you had this compound called soma. And soma obviously is sleep. And you would drink it and you would go into this different space of connecting with, you know, the gods or connecting with yourself. Native Americans have peyote. They have San Pedro. South Africa, they have ayahuasca. So Africa, they have, you sent me the article the other day about Ibogaine or Iboga. And Iboga is another compound from Gabon. And they use that as
this girl
a
who had
healing
cancer and was suffering a lot mentally because of it, not because the cancer was affecting her brain, but of course the burden, you know, of going through the chemo or whatever the process was for her. Even coming out of the chemo and successful and all, still suffering, tons of suffering. So she used the African, what's it called?
Iboga.
I said Iboga, and she said it cured her. She said, "What do you mean cured her?" She said, "I don't have any more depression." I said, "How long has it been?" She said, "Months. It's been 6 months. I haven't even looked back." Let me tell you my experience. What I learned also by the Bofu, because I only did the thing Mike Tyson recommended, the frog shit. And it was, and I smoked it, and I went out, and I came back more compassionate and happier. But it's like you go into this process with an intention. And and if you don't, if you focus on something, you go left every day. Here's the best example. You go left every day. You know it's right that you're supposed to go. But your habit is left. So you go, whether it be smoke a cigarette, take out, drink alcohol, whatever is that's troubling you about going left, right? You sleep with this married woman, anything you choose that's left. When you look at it from the distance as the watcher, you think, why the fuck would I ever go left? The right way is right. Why the fuck would I go left? Isn't that what it does? Why would I, as the watcher, and you take emotion and ego and all of these things out of it, you now see things for what they are. So as the watcher, and that's the reason people, when they say they self-study, they become these beautiful people. Why? Because it's just what God said. God said to do that. God already told you what to do. You can fuck with it, and you can twist it, you can recreate it, you can come up with reasons why not to, but they already tell you what to do. Here, you know the answer. So when you watch from afar, when you become the watcher, you do what God says. Oh, isn't that God threatening you? It's like, that's what you do. This is the most compassionate. This is the route that will cause the most happiness. This is the route that will make me the healthiest. You take that route because you're the watcher. So this is why these plant medicines and these high hallucinogenic drugs, whether it be, Bill Gates talking about his LSD, or it be, Mike Tyson talking about the Bofu, or this woman talking about, why suffer? Suffering is the mind fluctuating. When the mind is still, you can see better. So when that affects your brain and you're present and you watch something, it sometimes creates a profound effect. It sticks with you like, oh shit, I ain't going left no more. I'm not going to drink anymore. It's been destroying my family. A lot of people told me they stopped drinking or they stopped taking drugs or they shifted their health habits because they knew better, and they always knew better. But the profound experience of watching it, like you watch that movie, I was watching this silly Christmas movie made after the silly Christmas movie, after the beginning one, where Christmas, he goes and watches with the ghost. He sees the pain he's causing. He can't believe how happy he is that he's home now and not going to cause that pain anymore. This is the ayahuasca experience, to watch the pain you cause yourself, others, the suffering you're in, and watch it from afar and say, I ain't got to suffer. I don't have to do that shit. And then you come back, it's like, relieved, because now I'm free from, I don't even know why I did it. Like, why would I continue to do or have a habit that cost me so much suffering?
Right.
Is that right. I'm summing up my experience, but also what everyone says, right?
Yeah, I believe that that's a fairly accurate depiction of it. And I believe that it also shows you why you did that, and why you continue to do that, and why you think in those frames. And it brings you to the space of actually making a choice. Because I could tell you, like, you did the bufo, nothing outside of that experience changed. The people, nothing, the outside world didn't change at all. Only your view of yourself in juxtaposition to the outside world changed. So you say, like, yeah, I began to, exhibit a little bit more compassion. And I would say that, knowing you, that you're quite a compassionate person. And the compassion is a choice, because it's easy for us to express apathy. It's easy for us to express, write people off and fuck this, fuck that. But that active choice of actually connecting with somebody and understanding what they're saying and where they're coming from and why they are the way that they are is the highest form of compassion. You know what I mean? And I always say, like, to my clients, and, I work with a lot of people who are in leadership positions, that compassion is actually the evolution of empathy. It starts with empathy, and then when you push yourself to understand yourself more, it turns into compassion, to where you can hold that space for the person or for whatever it is that you're doing.
Listen,
You
I
spoke
encourage
about
everybody listening to check out Evolve with Melvin or the Evolutionist.com, because everyone is suffering from something, and just in cases your friends may need, or you may need, a shaman, well, I don't know about, his administering plant medicine, not in America. He takes his clients to Peru. He doesn't do it here at all. He has to go to Peru to take ayahuasca with Melvin. But or to take any of the plant medicine. What other plant? Now, we mentioned ayahuasca. We talked about that, because that's the mother, right? Is that called the mother of all the plant medicine?
Yeah, grandmother.
The bofu, which I tried. Grandmother. Well, I smoked that bofu shit, and it made a difference. And another girl who talked to me the other day, I forwarded you the article she sent me, because it's really, she said she could not believe all the therapists, all the discussions, all the hard work, all the medicine even in some cases, that she took to stop the depression. All she did was, how do you administer, what's the name of this thing she took? I sent to you? The African?
Iboga.
Iboga. So Iboga was a plant medicine in Africa. And you said that ayahuasca is Peru. Where the toad did I smoke? Where'd that come from?
It can come from Mexico and Central America.
Okay, so I spoke to toad. That's the thing Mike Tyson likes. It's called Bopo.
Yeah.
So,
that's
what
a
else
powerful
is
accelerant.
Bopo? So, have you administered the African thing? Are you really a shaman? You do the ayahuasca?
No, I work with mainly 4 plants, 5 plants. I work with ayahuasca, San Pedro, tobacco, coca, and mushrooms.
Well, tell me about tobacco. That seems like that's just poison. What is the?
Right.
I really want to know about all of it. Do you have all that stuff on your website, like people could understand what all those things do?
No, I haven't written out a lot of the content regarding like the finer aspects of each medicine, but they could totally, like, reach out to me. We could jump on a call, chat about it, or exchange some emails. Like, you can contact me through my website or on Instagram, and I answer everybody. I try to take the time to really answer people. And
this is what I was saying also. I was talking about celebrities, and they did something, and it's inspiring. To have an expert on the greatest form of therapy, that's really what it is. The long-standing and most successful form of therapy. for everybody who needs therapy, especially coming out of this. It's pretty special to be able to reach out to that person and learn, and maybe even have him as a teacher. You know, I mean, I met him. You know, he's like a deep, deep study on this kind of therapy, and on a lot of subjects. You know, and there's a lot of plant medicine. He said you mentioned 5 plant medicines. So you said. I was going to ask you about tobacco. I thought it was weird, but that's kind of a distraction. But you could. I remember when I did the Bofu, they made me sniff the tobacco. Woke my brain up. You know, I saw that. Joaquin Phoenix did that too. Silly.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
He smokes the Bofu, right? He's a big frog guy too. Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix.
So tobacco is administered a few different ways. Like what you had is something called hape or rape, depending on what part of the world you're in. Now, that tobacco is ground and it's mixed with an ash. And the ash is actually an activator for the alkaloids in the tobacco. It creates a chemical reaction with the tobacco. And they say that it opens up your third eye, clears out your sinuses, all of those things. Yeah, it does help with that. And then also recognize that the species of tobacco that they're using is what's called Nicotiana rustica. Nicotiana rustica has 9 times the amount of nicotine in it than like Marlboro or Newport cigarettes that people smoke. So this is all wild, not chemically treated indigenous tobacco that's harvested, rolled into like a long log, and then, you know, crushed, mixed with ash. Sometimes they use ash of the tobacco plant or a different form of ash to create that chemical reaction to activate the tobacco. And it's usually administered like they blow into your nose with it. That's one form of it.
The shaman blew it into my nose in advance of, and oh my God, my brain opened up. It was insane. But
and it burned like a motherfucker too.
Oh, it burned, yeah. But it was interesting because I was like, I cried a little bit and I opened my eyes. I was like, oh shit. But you know, then I went into the actual smoking of the Bofu. So go ahead. What else is there? Tell me about the peyote. People don't know much about peyote. They hear about it.
Right. Peyote is it's a cactus, and the active ingredient it's like the button of the cactus itself, and that active ingredient in peyote is mescaline. So mescaline is a derivative of peyote, the same as San Pedro cactus. All cactus medicine is what they derive mescaline from. Mescaline hydrochloride, I believe it to be. And it's harvested in different ways depending on where you're from or whatever shaman, however they choose to serve it to you. And it's very similar to, it's not similar to ayahuasca. I would say that mescaline is similar, or any cactus medicine is more similar to a mix between like MDMA and mushrooms, because you will have visuals on it. And you will have. Yeah, you may have.
That's not there, will you?
No, you won't see. When I
was a kid, I took LSD and Mickey Mouse chased me down the street. You won't know that shit. Yeah, no. And held in the right context with the right intentions, the administrator of the medicine itself will ensure that it's a tight container and a safe space for you to explore your own journey without, let's say, any outside interference or any things coming into your own journey where it may dissuade you from actually experiencing it and going deep with it. That's peyote. That's peyote. That's a pretty. The Indians have used that. The American, I shouldn't say Indian. I take that back. The native. Oh fuck, man! These white people got me fucked up. The Native Americans, the owners of the land that my house is playing. They use peyote as a spiritual. All of these plants were used by spiritual teachers and shamans, today known as shamans. I mean, all of them share that